What if your fast metabolism is actually a warning sign and not a blessing? Well, in today's episode, I sit down with Dr. Eric Osansky to break down hyperthyroidism and Graves' disease specifically, what it is, why it happens, and the symptoms most people completely miss. We also talk about the real root causes like stress, gut health, environmental triggers, and how they can quietly wreck your thyroid. If you've experienced unexplained weight loss, racing hard, or just feel off but can't figure it out, or maybe you do know you have it and are on so much medication, you want to know what some of the more holistic, natural ways to cope with this is, then stay tuned. So I keep talking about my SKOOL community that I'm on, and I've grown into about 100 members, and I'm really trying to help out the over 40 crowd, putting a platform out there that's better than Facebook groups. I really love this SKOOL setup. Having any type of discussion, if you can look at the tabs here, from general discussion to focusing on diet, movement, inflammation, this is just where I'm spending my time. Once again, check out the show notes for the link, or if you just Google over 40 fitness hacks SKOOL, SKOOL, I will be the first thing that pops up on Google with the SKOOL emblem right there. And you can sign up that way. Check us out. Hope to see you there. Dr. Eric, I just want to thank you for coming on my show. I'm real excited to learn more about the thyroid gland. You know, I had to re-educate myself, go on Google, see where it was, some of the functions of it, and also hyperthyroidism out there. And I kind of remember that being people that had problems with your metabolism being too fast. And I remember seeing different people with the kind of the eyes, I think, is the telltale sign, as well as other things. But we'll learn about that in a second. But just as my audience always knows, we kind of want to get to know the guests. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Excited to be here. And so my background is a doctor of chiropractic, and I was just at a traditional chiropractic practice. And long story short, I was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism and eventually Graves' disease. And that was completely new to me, a complete shock to me. And when I took continuing education credits as a chiropractor, I always took nutrition and functional medicine seminars, and a few of them focused on thyroid health. And so I knew there were natural options available. And so when I was diagnosed, I didn't know anybody else who went through those natural options, who took a natural approach, but I figured there's got to be an underlying cause of the problem. And so I changed my diet, just blocked out time for stress management. I mean, essentially changed diet and lifestyle, took some supplements, did some testing, and it took a while, but I was able to restore my health. And then just realized there's so many people out there with thyroid and autoimmune thyroid conditions. And so it really developed a passion for helping others with hyperthyroidism, Graves' disease, as well as those with Hashimoto's. My practice these days focuses a lot more on hyperthyroidism just because of my personal journey, although there are a lot more people with Hashimoto's, with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. But that in a nutshell is my background.
As far as hyperthyroidism, Hashimoto's, are all of these problems with the thyroid gland, are they almost always stemmed from autoimmune issues, or there could be a whole plethora of other issues as well to the thyroid?
According to the literature, approximately 90% of thyroid conditions are autoimmune. So approximately 90% of those with hypothyroidism have Hashimoto's, and same thing with hyperthyroidism. Most people with hyperthyroidism have Graves', but I mean, there definitely could be other causes, especially in this day and age. We have a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals that could directly affect the thyroid, and even though they could also affect the immune system too. So that could, there's some research showing that xenoestrogens, including microplastics, bisphenol A, can affect the immune system. So potentially also causing autoimmunity. And there are other, there's a condition, toxic multinodular goiter, which is not autoimmune, but it's when the person has multiple thyroid nodules and the presence of a goiter, which is an enlargement of the thyroid gland. And that could be a potential cause of hyperthyroidism. So yeah, not every condition is autoimmune, but yeah, the majority, most of them, said approximately 90%.
Okay. And just kind of going back to basics, our thyroid gland is right here below our Adam's apple. You can't really touch it because it's a paper thin butterfly shape. That's kind of what I read on Google.
Exactly. Yep. It's a butterfly shaped glands, and yeah. So exactly. And it produces the thyroid hormones, the main ones, T4 and some T3. Actually, most of T4 converts into T3, which is the active form of thyroid hormone. And then there's T1 and T2, which we're still learning more about, and you can't test those on a lab. But yeah, very important, of course. Thyroid gland. Thyroid hormones affect pretty much most of the cells and tissues in the body.
And its main purpose is your metabolism, regulating heartbeats, and anything else? I kind of just got the gist on Google.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, you're right. It's well known for metabolism. So if someone has low thyroid hormones, then underactive thyroid, then typically they'll have low metabolism. Whereas when I dealt with Graves, I had that increased metabolism, so increased resting heart rate. I lost 42 pounds and had other symptoms that we could definitely talk about. Also affects bone turnover. So if you have too much thyroid hormone, that could increase bone turnover and lead to osteopenia, osteoporosis, so essentially lower bone density. Whereas if you have low thyroid, it affects more of the bone quality and then affects cholesterol. So that's a lot of times when someone has high cholesterol, it could be thyroid related, but many doctors will jump to the statins, be like, okay, you have high cholesterol and let's just put you on a statin, and the person will be on a statin for usually good, permanently. And not to say every case of high cholesterol is related to the thyroid, but it makes sense to at least do a test, do some testing to see if someone has an underactive thyroid in this case. And if someone has an underactive thyroid, that might be the cause behind the high cholesterol, high LDL, affects kidney function. So if someone has, again, underactive thyroid, some of the kidney markers might be out of range, sometimes looking like kidney disease. Whereas with hyperthyroidism, it's the opposite for both cholesterol and kidneys. For cholesterol, a lot of people with hyperthyroidism have low cholesterol, and then you'll see like the filtration rate, the glomerular filtration rate on a comprehensive metabolic test. Again, with hypothyroidism, it might be low, giving an indication maybe the person has kidney disease when it's really just the thyroid that needs to be addressed. And then again, in hyperthyroidism, it's commonly really high, which makes sense. The metabolism is increasing, more stress being put on the kidneys.
What about the other end of the spectrum where people are gaining too much weight? What is the term for that and cause of that?
Yeah, so when you have low thyroid hormone, so hypothyroidism, and that's, and then, like I said, most cases of hypothyroidism are Hashimoto. Many times it doesn't get diagnosed though, because you need to look at the antibodies, and not all endocrinologists will test for the antibodies. And the main reason is because the treatment doesn't differ conventionally, whether someone has hypothyroidism and it's not non-autoimmune compared to someone with Hashimoto's. But yeah, with hypothyroidism, very common to gain weight. Other symptoms include brain fog, coldness, very common, whereas if someone has elevated thyroid hormone, sometimes they'll have like heat intolerance. Hair loss is pretty common, really with both hypo and hyper. You see hair loss, sluggish bowels with hypothyroidism, whereas with hyperthyroidism, you might get increased bowel movements, sometimes loose stools, diarrhea. But yeah, like I said earlier, hypothyroidism is definitely a lot more common than hyperthyroidism. I think like for every one person with hyperthyroidism, like 8 people have hypothyroidism. So yeah, definitely we see more of that. But like I said, in my practice, I see more hyper and Graves just because there's not a lot of practitioners that focus on that, and because of my backstory. Yeah.
So you mentioned both of those are, and 90% of all the problems with the thyroid end up being autoimmune. In my mind, autoimmune from all the, people I've talked to over the years just means, gut health. Is that a big thing? There's a correlation between gut health, the brain, all this autoimmune issues, and including the thyroid? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, no, that's definitely safe to say. The most of the immune system cells, like 70 to 80% of the immune cells, are located in the gut. So you need to have a healthy gut in order to have a healthy immune system. And also, obviously, if you don't have adequate digestion absorption, then you're not going to break down the nutrients, absorb the nutrients, which are important not only for thyroid function, but there are other reasons behind that as well. And then also most of the conversion of T4 into T3 takes place in the liver, but about 20% takes place in the gut. But when it comes to autoimmunity, like I said, most of the immune cells are located in the gut, but then there's also what's called the triad of autoimmunity, or the 3-legged stool of autoimmunity, which according to this triad, there are 3 components necessary for autoimmunity to develop. One is a genetic predisposition, which of course we can't do anything about, but the other 2 things we can focus on, which is exposure to 1 or more environmental triggers. And then that 3rd component is that increase in intestinal permeability, or the leaky gut. So that's another way where the gut health can lead to an autoimmune condition, is just if someone has that increased intestinal permeability, along with the other 2 legs of the stool, the triad of autoimmunity, then that could definitely set the stage for an autoimmune condition such as Graves or Hashimoto's.
And let's stick with hyperthyroidism. For my over 40 audience, is this something we have to worry about, or is this like a low percentage chance of people who get this, I assume? And also, what are the signs? What do we need to look for to even know to come find a specialist like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely less common than hypo. So I mean, obviously it could happen. It happened to me. It happens to a lot of people I work with. I mean, as far as what people should look out for, I mean, with me, the way So I was losing a lot of weight, had increased appetite, but I was also intentionally trying to lose weight initially. I was dieting, detoxifying, exercising, excessively exercising. I was overtraining, which wasn't good. I should have been aware at the time, but it wasn't until I took my resting heart rate or I took my blood pressure, one of those automated blood pressure machines, and it also took my heart rate. And my heart rate was at that time like 90 beats per minute. And then I was thinking, maybe I was walking around a retail store at the time, and I'm like, maybe it's just because I was walking around. But the next few days, I would measure it at home, and it was anywhere between 90 and 110 beats per minute. And so then I started putting the pieces together a little bit. Went to a primary care doctor, got some blood testing done. Sure enough, it showed that I was hyperthyroidism. And then went to an endocrinologist, got the antibodies tested for Graves, and sure enough, they were positive. But yeah, sign-wise, and that's the thing, not everybody loses weight with hyperthyroidism. I mean, I'd say that's majority, like that's a more classic symptom, but there are people who gain weight, so you can't just go by losing weight. But that being said, if someone is just all of a sudden losing a good amount of weight, and then they're experiencing heart palpitations, they check their heart rate, and the heart rate's elevated, again, those are potential signs. And you mentioned the eyes. So this isn't the case with everybody. Like when I dealt with Graves, I didn't have what's called thyroid eye disease. But there are some people that I've worked with where that was actually the first sign to happen, the first symptom where they were having some eye swelling or pressure of the eyes. And then they went to see their eye doctor, and either the eye doctor, the optometrist, or some of them were referred out to like an ophthalmologist, like a different eye specialist, and were told that they have thyroid eye disease. And then they went ahead and got blood work, which confirmed Graves. So I would say that's not as common for at least people I see, where usually they get diagnosed with hyperthyroidism first, and then eventually some of them do develop thyroid eye disease. But that's another way. If someone is having eye symptoms like eye pressure, eye bulging, eye swelling, that could be a potential sign as well.
Yeah. And as far as like causes, is this just a genetic thing or diet or toxic environment? Let's just start with you. Do you know what the cause was in your case?
Well, usually, I mean, it's not
Or it's all
just genetic.
speculation.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, to some extent, yeah. I mean, it's definitely not just genetic. And they've proven this with twin studies where with autoimmunity, the identical twins, if it was all genetic, then if one twin developed the autoimmune condition, the other twin should definitely develop it since they have the same genes. But that's not the case. I think it's like 20, 30%. So that shows that there's a strong environmental component. So yeah, you definitely need to be exposed to one or more environmental triggers. And many people have multiple triggers, and stress is a big one. Definitely was a big factor with me. At the time, I wasn't aware. I mean, looking back, it was pretty obvious, but I mentioned I was overtraining. So there was that physical stressor, but then the emotional stressor was there. I just thought I was doing a good job of handling it until I did some adrenal testing, did an adrenal saliva test, and everything was low. Cortisol was low, DHEA was low, and then it just made me realize that, yeah, I wasn't doing as good of a job of managing the stress as I thought I was. So in my case, I'm sure adrenals and gut were two big factors, but there could be other triggers in different people. I talk about 4 categories of triggers. So you mentioned food, things like gluten, corn, even salts could increase the autoimmune response in some people. And again, not to say you can't have some sea salt every now and then, but in moderation, as they say. And then number 2, stress, as I just mentioned, chemicals, which you spoke about a little bit with the environmental toxins, and not just there's toxins and toxicants. So toxicants are like synthetic, man-made. So I mentioned like the microplastics, for example, but then there's more natural, like toxins such as mycotoxins from mold could also be a potential trigger. And then certain infections like H. pylori, parasites, viruses, such as Epstein-Barr, even COVID. So yeah, those are some of the more common triggers that can cause or lead to a condition, at least being a contributing factor to Graves and Hashimoto's.
I mean, once these triggers set this whole thing off and this autoimmune response, what is actually happening? Your body's now attacking the thyroid gland and it's having to speed up or slow down. Is that kind of like the simplest form of what's going on? Or
I guess simple terms, it's the immune system, and there's different reasons, different mechanisms, like molecular mimicry is one where it mistakes the amino acids, like let's say of certain chemicals or even of gluten. Some will say that the amino acid sequence of gluten resembles that of the thyroid gland. And again, there's not a lot of evidence in the research with that specific example. There are with like infections, certain infections also the amino acid sequence, there might be some similarities and the body, but whatever, these are still theories. It's a strong
Yeah.
theory, but we still don't have all the answers. But yeah, essentially the body attacks, the immune system attacks the thyroid gland. And in the case of hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, it's damaging the thyroid gland. There's certain structures of the thyroid gland it will attack and damage, which could lead to hypothyroidism. Whereas with Graves' disease, it's attacking the TSH receptors of the thyroid, which not really causing damage. So it's more stimulation, which causes the hyperthyroidism. But yeah, with all autoimmunity, it's attacking different areas of the body.
Okay. And as far as, obviously people start seeing the symptoms, they go get checked out, in Western medicine, they're going to want to pump all the drugs into you. I'm assuming you came on the show because you have the more holistic versions of things people can try first. And what are some of the things that helped you or that you promote? I'm sure diet and lifestyle are big on it, but what else you got?
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right about diet and lifestyle, but you want to be safe when dealing with, I mean, really with either hyper or hypothyroidism, even though the thyroid is really the cause of the problem. We mentioned the immune system in most of these cases, but you still, like, if someone has a resting heart rate of 100 beats per minute, or sometimes it's 120 or 150 beats per minute, but either way, you want to lower the thyroid hormone in that case. And so in conventional medicine, most of the time they'll recommend anti-thyroid medication to suppress the thyroid hormone. Sometimes they'll jump to more extreme methods, such as radioactive iodine, where they're using radiation to destroy the thyroid gland, or thyroid surgery, which of course is removing the thyroid gland. And yeah, so I mean, there's a time and place for anti-thyroid medication, and I do have patients that take the medication. When I dealt with Graves, I decided to take an herbal approach that I learned by attending the seminars. There's two herbs which aren't as well known as like other herbs, like most people have heard of, like milk thistle and ashwagandha and these other herbs, but these are not as well known. So one is bugleweed, which helps to, it's kind of an herb with anti-thyroid properties, helps to lower the thyroid hormones. And then there's motherwort, which works more on the cardiovascular system. Similar to, I compare it to I call it a natural beta blocker. I mean, it's not the exact same mechanism, but there are those. And then one you're probably familiar with, L-carnitine. So L-carnitine, which could support mitochondria and fatty acid oxidation. But some studies show that in higher amounts, between 2,000 and 4,000 milligrams per day, it could actually block the entry of thyroid hormone into the cell. So in some cases, that could be beneficial for those with hyperthyroidism. And then if someone has low thyroid, typically they're given thyroid hormone replacements. And again, time and place for it, but you want to always address the cause of the problem, whereas most doctors will just say, take the thyroid hormone replacement permanently, and that's the solution.
So now in your case, is this just a thing of the past, or once you've kind of had this, it's always on your watch list that it could come back if you're not taking the proper protocols and herbs and...
Yeah, great question. I mean, I feel like I'm cured, but I don't like to use the word cured just because there is that genetic component and there's always a chance that I could relapse. So, I mean, it's been, as of recording this, it's been over 16 years since I've been in remission, so which is a long time. And I still eat healthy. I live a healthy lifestyle, but I'm also not perfect. And I want people to realize that because, again, nobody's perfect. It's not like I never indulge from a diet perspective. It's not like I never get stressed out. I'm a lot better than I was when I was originally diagnosed, and it is a work in progress. Thankfully, I don't have to take, the same supplements I did years ago, like bugleweed, motherwort. I took for 9 months, but I haven't taken since 2009. So those I don't take, but I still take omegas. I take a probiotic, take vitamin D, which is important for a healthy immune system. I take magnesium. So I do take supplements. Again, not all the ones I took back then, but yeah. So I would say that, I don't know if you could say that you're ever in the clear where you don't have to worry about it coming back, but I don't really think about it. I don't stress out about it. Like, oh yeah, I could relapse, and it's, just live my life, try to live as healthy as I can. And I mean, if I ever relapsed, I wouldn't have any regrets. I mean, it definitely beats getting your thyroid removed or using radiation. So I would just have to tweak my diet again, and just get my health back. So hopefully I don't relapse in the future. But again, sometimes it does happen, and I, still think it beats the conventional treatments. And like I said, there is a time and place for the medication. Some people do need to take the medication to get the thyroid under control. The problem is, again, most of the people that are doing that aren't doing anything else except just taking the medication.
Exactly. You think you want to start a nice baseline, doing everything right, and then if it exceeds that, then you've got the the medicine to help, but I prefer the holistic if I can and not try to pump as many drugs in my body.
Exactly.
Dr. Eric, as far as, someone's seeing the signs or they're kind of giving up on their doc or they don't want to take these drugs, they want to see if there's another way. They learn about you and your practice. Is this something where you have to physically meet people? I assume in North Carolina, you've got a clinic or something, or can you help people online? How does working with you
Yeah, no,
look like?
I do work with people remotely, and I think it is a good idea to get a physical exam. Like most people who work with me, they've already been diagnosed, they've already
Yeah.
seen an endocrinologist, had a thyroid exam, because obviously I can't do that remotely. But assuming they've gotten that, and yeah, I mean, so every now and then there'll be someone who their endocrinologist appointment is like months out, and they want to do something in the meantime. And usually I'm not going to say, well, you have to wait like 3 or 4 months, but it's preferred that they work with someone since I can't do an exam. I mean, you could diagnose Graves pretty easily through blood work, so it's not like they absolutely need to see an endocrinologist for that. But like I said, just to get the thyroid exam, and then if someone needs medication for that reason. But yeah, I do work remotely. I mean, I have a couple of books on hyperthyroidism, so people, of course, could always go to Amazon and either read or listen to the audio version of the books first and learn more of how I work. And if they're comfortable with that, of course, yeah, they're welcome to schedule an appointment.
Yeah. I imagine even if someone, they trust their doctor, they're doing what they said, go to the endocrinologist, they got put on the meds, would it still be beneficial to talk to someone like you and, use your protocols, your herbals, and can even coincide with those meds until maybe they don't need them? Because my thought process, sometimes they work synergistically together where then you can get off the meds over time. So if they don't like fully believe that I have to go holistic, can it be done together? Or is there?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. And yeah, there are a lot of people who combine conventional with the holistic. They, as I mentioned earlier, there are definitely people I work with who are taking the medication. And I mean, there's different reasons. Sometimes the natural agents just aren't effective depending on the person. And sometimes they have no choice. Other times they didn't hear about me, or, they
In time,
they
yeah.
didn't know there was a natural option, but they're already on the methimazole and it seems like it's doing a good job. And I mean, side effects are common, but not everybody has side effects. So if someone's taking the medication, especially a lower dose, they're tolerating it well, they might choose just, hey, let's stay, they might just stay on the medication and then say, I know it's not a permanent solution. So while I'm on the medication, let's go ahead and do some testing, find the triggers, remove the triggers. So yeah, I mean, without question, if someone, and again, maybe they're not fully sold, but like I said, maybe they are, but some people try the natural approach. Even before seeing me, they might have tried some natural agents, and there could be reasons why it didn't work: the dosing, the quality of the supplement, the quality of the
Yeah.
herb. But there is a time and place for the meds. So absolutely, if someone, for whatever reason, they're on the medication and they want to stay on the medication while removing the triggers, healing the gut, they absolutely could do that.
Yeah. Someone with like Graves' disease, they see it coming. Maybe they don't go to the doctor, or maybe they did, and they're like, whatever, I'll just live with it. Is Graves' disease like fatal if you don't address the thyroid gland, or is it just something you're just going to have to deal with all these issues and problems for the rest of your life? Like how dangerous is it?
I mean, unmanaged hyperthyroidism could be dangerous. I mean, most of the time it's not going to kill you, but it could. Yeah, I mean, it
Okay.
affects the heart. There's what's called the thyroid storm, where it's a medical emergency. And I mean, it's rare, but it does happen. And most people with thyroid storm, they don't die. But again, it is possible. So yeah, I would definitely take it seriously. I mean, safe symptom management is important while addressing the cause of the problem. So yeah, if someone has hyperthyroidism and they want, or let's say Graves, if they don't want to address it naturally, they want to do something. And I mean, there's actually research, this isn't preferred by me, but taking the anti-thyroid medication, specifically methimazole, taking the lower dose for, I mean, if someone's tolerating it well, they can do that for like 10, 15 years. Like studies show that it's fine, even though some doctors will say you could only take it for 2 years. And then if the person's not in so-called remission, then they need to get a thyroidectomy or radioactive iodine. But yeah, you definitely don't want to just live with unmanaged hyperthyroidism. I mean, same thing with hypo. If someone has low thyroid hormone for different reasons, again, I guess that could kill you in extreme cases. Rarely will it get low enough, but even so, I mean, thyroid hormone is important for so many different functions that you don't want too little, but you also don't want it too much.
Yeah, you don't want to leave it unchecked for sure. I don't know why anyone would
Yeah.
want to suffer do something about
exactly.
it.
Yeah,
So.
agreed.
Well, cool. Well, Dr. Eric, besides your books you mentioned on Amazon, I'm sure they're on your website. If someone wants to reach out to you, work with you, or just at least check you out, is your website the best bet, or are you on any socials, anything else?
Yeah, the website Save My Thyroid. Yeah, that's SaveMyThyroid.com is great. I also have a newsletter on Substack, Heal Graves Naturally. So, which the shortcut is SaveMyThyroid.com/Graves newsletter. Or again, they just go on Substack and do a search for me. And yeah, I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. So I got a couple of groups on Facebook. One that focuses on hyperthyroidism and Graves. So yeah, those are some of the different ways that people could find me.
Awesome. And my audience knows I'll put all those links in the show notes too, so they can just click on it. It's great to meet people like yourself that are specialists in things like this, because like I said, in all my podcasting years and even in my influence with all my clients, I've never even really had anyone, at least that I knew, that was experiencing anything with Graves or hyperthyroid. But now I know the person, so all these things come in life, and it's good to have a bookmark of someone that can help them through this process. So really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thanks again, Brad. Yeah, some great questions. Hope your audience found this to be valuable. And yeah, appreciate having this conversation.
Absolutely.